Good morning. One more time. Wow, what a powerful, beautiful morning. I hope that you're enjoying this energy. I feel like we've brought this really beautiful energy we've cultivated with all of our hearts for 3.5 days in retreat to share with you all. Mindfulness practice is so rich. And retreat is so important. To retreat, to take time, turn off those phones and those computers and just the world, and just really take a deep dive within. Jack Kornfield, I really love his work. He said, true spirituality requires us to be fully present for life. To be fully present for life. And so that's really what we've been practicing. We've really been practicing listening and speaking to each other mindfully, really being in touch with the words we're saying. We've practiced being aware of what we feel each moment, being aware of what's happening in our body, being aware of what's happening in our mindfulness. And most of all, being aware that there's awareness here that observes it all. And when we are resting in that, it's like everything can happen and be as it is. And the awareness has no problem with it, right? So the awareness is this observer. It's this witness. You could say it's the God in us. It's the consciousness in us that watches and loves and allows, right? So the more we identify with that, the more free we become, the more beautiful and shining we become, and the more we deeply live each moment. It's rich. Not a moment is wasted because we're present, right? Yes. There's a quote, Chief Seattle said, I don't know if I have it exactly right, but he said that we're each a thread. Each one of us, we're a thread in this web, this very, very great web of humanity. And that whatever we do in our little corner affects the whole web. And so I feel so good about what we're doing here right now, and what each one of you is a part of, what we're weaving into this web of humanity, just by being still together and meditating together, singing together, emanating peace, choosing peace anew this moment and this moment and this moment, right? It's just such a blessing, and it's simple. Sometimes when people leave retreat, they leave and they say, oh, okay, now back to the world, and that always never sat well with me, because we create the real world. We create our world every moment. And so this can be the real world. We can choose to live every moment mindfully, bringing peace or returning to peace if we lose it, because we're going to lose it, right? We return to peace again and again. We return to love again and again. Just walking out of here and smiling at one anonymous person today, you are creating peace. You're bringing beauty. You are making your little corner of the web more beautiful, right? So the thing about learning to be really fully present in presence is it helps us meet everything that life brings. It makes all the beauty more beautiful because we're so present for it, every little flower. But it also helps us with the difficult and painful parts of, in life and on the planet. It's taking care of our inner environment. I was thinking, we're inner environmentalists, right? I'm an outer environmentalist too, but I am very much an inner environmentalist. And I think the inner environment is so important to include in our environmentalism, to keep the inner environment green and healthy and unpolluted, right? And, that allows us, when we cultivate the inner environment, to bring our attention, when we bring it outside, we just naturally help the suffering in our world. We just naturally do. You know, we each make a difference. We're each a drop in this ocean. We can just create this beautiful ocean of love and well-being. That's what we've been doing. So when you find yourself feeling like this world, you know, it has so much suffering, what can I possibly do? You know, how can I make a difference? I know that Mother Teresa had a quote about that. She said, you know what I do? I just pick up that next person I run into on the street. You know, when she was doing all that work in Calcutta, India, you know, she would just pick up that one person, take them back to the monastery and bathe them and give them a clean bed. It was usually people that were about to leave their bodies. So, you know, she just focused on that one person in front of her and saw the Christ in them, saw the divine in them, saw that they were worthy. But there's this really wonderful story I love. You might have heard it before, but it's called the starfish story. And there was this man, and he was walking along the beach. This boy up ahead that's doing something. He's squatting down and he's picking up something, and he's going into the ocean, right? So we have a little bit of a microphone cord problem, but we're going to work with it. So anyway, he got closer to the boy and he said, "What are you doing?" And the boy said, "Well, I'm picking up these starfish. The tide came in and they're all stuck up here on the shore, and I'm tossing them back out to the water because the tide's going out, so they live, because if they stay up here, they'll dry out in the sun." And the man said, "Well, you know, there are miles and miles and miles of beach, and there are hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of starfish. I mean, you're not going to make a difference. You know, how can you make a difference? You know?" And the boy just politely listened, and then he just squatted back down, and he saw a starfish, and he picked it up very gently, and he threw it out into the ocean, and it swam away. And he looked up at the man, and he said, "It made a difference to that one." It made a difference to that one, right? Yeah, so we can just, you know, pick up the next starfish and give it some love, right? When we move about in our life, pick up the next starfish and give it some love. Alma, my teacher, I know I probably say this quote more often than any quote, but I'll just keep saying it because it's so good. Alma would always say, "Don't be discouraged by your incapacity to dispel darkness from the world. Light your candle and step forward." Light your candle and step forward. Yeah. Years ago, Byron Katie contacted me, and she wanted to use one of my songs, Holy Mother, for the work that she was doing. And I gave her permission, and then I got her book because I had never heard of her. And her book is Loving What Is, right? So just that title, I mean, that's all you have to read. The title, I mean, that is a lot to contemplate. Loving what is. Wow. I mean, I've thought about that a lot. I bet you have too. There's another book Matt Kahn wrote. It's kind of a similar title. Whatever arises, love that. Whatever arises, love that. So I have thought about that a lot. And the way I interpret that is, there are things that we cannot possibly love, right? We cannot love war, right? We cannot possibly love public shootings, right? I mean, you know, unless you're really unconscious and, you know. So we don't love it like we love ice cream, right? What we do is we bring love to it. We bring love to it. That's how I interpret loving what is. We bring love to it. You know, we unfold it with love because it's a part of humanity crying out for love, for transformation, for a release from darkness, a release from ignorance. You know, that's what we do. You know, to love what is to take whatever it is. It's easy to love spring, and it's easy to love these roses Chuck gave me, right? But you know, to love the suffering that is just part of life that we all have to meet, and embrace it with compassion, like the most loving mother of the universe. To be mindful of our own feelings and our own suffering, and be present for ourselves with wider awareness and with an open heart towards ourselves. The observer in us, the presence in us, the witness, the consciousness that's informing this body, it has its own existence before this body and after this body. It has its own existence, and that's what we can identify with. That's what we practice in mindfulness, identifying with this consciousness that's informing this body that will leave. So when we identify more and more with consciousness, we're able to self-soothe. We were talking about self-soothing, and we can do that for ourselves. That's what becoming skillful and conscious means, right? We can meet the child part of us, the wounded part of us, the unhealedness in us, with this awareness, this loving awareness that is able to self-reflect and look deeply at the core of where that suffering comes from. And we develop equanimity, right? I sometimes say, think of your mind when it's upset and it's anxious like a child. That's what Thich Nhat Hanh would always say. It's a child tugging on your leg. It's upset, it's rebelling, it's telling stories about why everything is so very wrong. In that moment, we bring mindfulness to our mind like a loving mother. We calm that child. We help that child find peace with what is. I really experience this. I have conversations with my mind. I calm my mind down, often. We attend to that part of ourselves with kindness. So whatever arises, attend to that, love that. And what I don't mean is I don't mean identify with it and just only, use your mind to meet it, right? Because the mind will tell the story about why it's not okay. And it'll keep that story going for days, weeks, years, lifetimes, right? So, and mindfulness, it's not trying to fix. It's more like just the presence and attention of pure awareness. That presence brings us to peace. It brings us to surrender. It gives us a peace and the ability to accept what is, and then we can work on it. Sometimes we can change it, sometimes we can't. But to even begin, we need that peace. That's creating from peace is most effective versus creating from reactivity or creating from, trauma or anger. So tell me what is surrender to you? What's your description of surrender? What does that mean, spiritual surrender? What does it mean? Anybody? Acceptance. Yes. Faith? Faith. Yes. Yes. Say that again. Giving over control. Giving over control. Yes. Yes, indeed. What's that? Letting go. Let go. Surrender. Let go. Releasing. Yes. Yes. Nice. What else? Thank you, Cynthia. I was waiting for that word, trust. Surrender is trusting life, isn't it? Trusting life. Trusting, Einstein said you have to decide at some point if you believe this is a benign universe or a malign universe. You have to decide. And I know for a fact, I promise you, it is benign. It is an immensity of love that brought everything into creation. So life, knowing that life will guide us if we do our best. And, we let go of the rest and we find peace. So Matt, he has in his book some suggestions and affirmations when you're struggling to say, the mind often doesn't know, how to love the pain I'm in. The mind doesn't know sometimes how to love the pain I'm in. The mind doesn't know how to love the sadness I feel. The mind doesn't know how to love the struggles I face. The mind doesn't know how to love the one who's never satisfied. But the presence in us, as it grows, and we give it room to be in us, and give attention to it, it's like this loving spaciousness that can hold everything. And just the presence of it and the way it holds us tenderly allows the letting go, allows the peace, and allows us also to receive the divine intelligence that will guide us if we're struggling with something really challenging. So yeah, when we acknowledge we don't know, Gangaji used to always say it's a great place when you don't know, because you're in a beginner mind, you're in a receptive mode. When we don't know, we just let go of the burden and the conflict, and we just surrender into the heart. We surrender into the heart. Eckhart Tolle, he says, become at ease with the state of not knowing. A power and intelligence greater than you, and yet one with you, can in essence take over. You become aligned with the greater consciousness. It acts, it speaks, it does the works. It plays the piano. That's what I find. You just get out of the way, and it can act, it can speak, it can move through you. So it's about letting it be. We should sing that. Let it be. Speaking words of wisdom, let it be, right? Totally, he talks beautifully about this. He says, when you completely accept this moment, when you no longer argue with what is, the compulsion to think lessens and is replaced by an alert stillness. This state of inner non-resistance opens you to the unconditional consciousness that is infinitely greater than the human mind, the higher power. It's called so many things. That's a nice term for it. So when we get into that mindfulness, that non-resistance, it brings spaciousness around what we tend to react to or have judgments for. And I'll give you an example. So I was laying in bed earlier this week before the retreat, and I was just about ready to go to sleep. It was late. It was like 1 a.m, and I hear this guy singing. I'm in the park. I'm right on Granite Street. And for some reason, people like to come to that the fountain and sing and act, practice their. So he was singing at the top of his lungs. And at first, in my jammies and everything, I was just ready to walk over there. It wasn't very far away, and say, you really need to practice mindfulness of, the neighborhood and the fact that everyone is trying to sleep. And then I laid there a little longer, and I noticed my resistance. So I laid there a little longer, and I did some breathing and just tried to let it go, relax. And then something strange started happening. I really started digging his melody. It was like, wow, that is such a strange melody. It's like, I don't know, it was like a melody I'd never heard. And he just kept singing this one line over and over. It was about 4 measures. But it was like haunting. It was like, I've never written that in a song. It was just so different. And so then I smiled to myself, and I thought, this is so funny. I'm actually enjoying this nightingale, right? This human nightingale. So then I found peace with it, put my earplugs in, and went to sleep. Yeah. So the moral story is, we can observe our resistance. It's great if you get good at observing it, and then really make an inner transition from the resistance to acceptance. From no to, well, okay. Now I'm going to let go of fighting it, right? So that's a chord. I'm sorry, I'll try to hold it together here. The acceptance brings peace, okay? So, one of the things we did in retreat, we really practiced listening to each other. And it's so powerful to listen without preparing your response. Because we're already thinking about what we're going to say. We've got a whole thing. Oh yeah, that reminds me of this whole thing. I'm going to tell this whole story as soon as they're done talking. The minute they take a breath, I'm going to respond with my story. It's so different to don't do that at all and just be really present till they're done sharing. We had a forgiveness practice yesterday. It was so powerful. I mean, the revelations people got to and the things they shared, they were so vulnerable and beautiful and true and authentic that it was stunning. I mean, you really could not say anything. And so I started having everybody just take 3 breaths between each person sharing so we could just like let that settle, let that be really received, you know, because it was so profound. So that's a beautiful way we can be more mindful. And it's such a gift we can give each other. We all just want someone to really listen to us, really hear us, and be present for us. Also, when someone's really listening, they're bringing spaciousness, and you'll usually figure out, you know, if there's that spaciousness, it really helps us figure out what our own answer is, because it's inside of us, right? So we want to be mindful when we're telling a story of what is wrong when it's a habit. That's another thing. You know, we know people, maybe we've been this way ourselves sometimes, where we just get in a habit of focusing on everything that's wrong, you know. Somebody shared something about they called a family member and there was 10 minutes of just a litany of what's wrong. And, you know, I think we need to have compassion for that even, because that's the amygdala. That's the part of the brain that looks for what's dangerous. And that's just an old, you know, we don't have lions and tigers and bears chasing us anymore, but that's built in to keep us safe, right? So we can have compassion for that part of us that wants to focus on what's wrong, but change that, you know, change that habit, because those thoughts make us unhappy. One of the things I shared is it's good to just ask ourselves, is anything really wrong in this moment, right now? Usually not, right? You know, so the other thing we can do is we can just not add a story to what is, right? It's raining. Not, it's raining, so I have to be stuck inside all day and I'm just going to be miserable, right? You're affirming your misery, right? Or someone singing in the park at 1 a.m. I don't have to add anything to that, right? Or I didn't get enough sleep last night. It's just how it is, right? We don't have to add anything to it. We don't have to say, and so that's so terrible. It just is what it is. My mom used to always say that. So there's deep peace when we can just accept life completely as it is right now, as Catherine said, acceptance. Such a deep practice. So in closing, my prayer is that we all really continue our mindfulness training, that we deepen together in it, and that we really learn to bring such presence to each moment. Our world needs it so much. I feel like I was sharing in the retreat, I feel like our world is so mind-oriented, just, you know, everyone's attached to their phone or to the news, and it's just all mental. And if you don't have any spaciousness around all that thinking, it's like life feels almost half dead. We need the silence. We need the silence to know that something greater, to feel that something greater, to invite that something greater. So let us be present for the sun shining and the flowers blooming and these beautiful people we're in the room with here, and really listen deeply. Listen deeply and pay attention to the awareness in us, and let that have a lot more room. Life can be peaceful. Life can be peaceful. I believe we can live each day, each moment in peace. I really do, and I'm dedicated to that, and I hope that you are too, and you'll join me in that, and we'll grow in that, and we'll just continue to be a blessing and have our blessings ripple out. So may you, each one of you, be filled with peace. May any place you are needing healing, receive that healing. May all beings be happy and at peace. Thank you. I love you. Om Shanti.